Wine was running through the office hallway, panting heavily. She was 15 minutes late. Her heart pounded so badly because she knew what was coming. Her boss might scold her again. For the past few days, she had been late continuously. The endless workload, the sleepless night, preparing presentation, it was draining her completely, and yet she couldn't afford to make mistakes. Jungkook, her boss, her cold, terrifying boss. Every employee in Jeon Enterprise feared him. A single mistake under his watch could make anyone's life a living hell. Although Jungkook had let her lateness slide a few times, even warning her not to repeat it, here she was, again late. Just then the manager came rushing up to her. Wine, sir is calling you. Her heart stopped. She knew what was coming. Slowly, with trembling legs, she stepped into his office. There he was, Jeon Jungkook, CEO of Jeon Enterprise, seated in his black leather chair, his cold eyes fixed on his laptop screen, typing something important. His face was expressionless, his aura sharp, intimidating, powerful. So scary that anyone stand before him would feel shiver run down their spine. Across from him, Wine stood straight, her posture still, hands shaking slightly. Every time she faced him, her nervousness took over because one single mistake could cost her everything. Wine was an orphan, the only earning member of her family. Her younger sister was still in school and their rent depended on her paycheck. She needed this job badly. Losing it wasn't an option. Finally, Jungkook's voice cut through the silence. You are late again. Wine lowered her eyes. Unable to meet his gaze, her heart raced, her hands trembling. He slid a file across the desk. Take this and make sure there are no errors like last time. This project is important, very important. I don't want to see any more mistakes. One nodded quickly, her voice soft. Yes, sir, I'll make sure of it. She tried to smile faintly before retreating back to her desk, but as Jungkook's cold eyes followed her retreating figure, they softened. Wine had been his secretary for 1.5 years, and somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, she had carved out a soft place in his heart. His chest tightened, his heart beating faster. Jeon Jungkook, the cold CEO feared by everyone, harbored a secret he could never say aloud. He was in love with her. One sat down at her desk, finally letting out a deep sigh of relief, her hands trembling slightly as she whispered to herself, "Oh my God, he's so scary. I can't even stand in front of him for 5 minutes without shaking. I have already made so many mistakes these past few days. I can't afford to make another one." With that determination, she forced herself to focus on the file Jungkook had given her. Hours passed. The sun had set, the office empty. Her eyes burned, her head throbbed with a dull pain, but she shook it off, refusing to stop. Suddenly a cold voice cut through the silence. "You haven't gone home yet?" Wine flinched, quickly standing up and bowing. "Sir, I haven't finished the file yet. I'll leave after it's done." Jacob's gaze lingered on her, unreadable. Then, in his low, husky voice, he spoke again. "Finish it at home. You shouldn't stay this late at the office. Pack your things." She froze, unsure what to do, but under his sharp gaze she finally began packing her bags. And then his voice came again, "Come, I'll drop you." Her eyes widened. "No, sir, it's not needed. I can go by myself." But Jungkook didn't listen. He simply walked out of the office expecting her to follow. Her heart pounded loudly. How could she possibly go home with him? He was her scary boss, the one she could barely breathe around. Still, she followed. The car ride was silent, heavy. One sat stiffly in the passenger seat, finger clenching her back. Her head swung harder now, but she ignored it, too nervous to even speak. Jungkook, on the other hand, kept his eyes on the road. But every few minutes he stole glances at her. His gaze softened before quickly returning to the road. Finally, the car pulled up to her apartment. One quickly bowed and voice flustered. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." She got out of the car in a rush, bowing again before hurrying towards her apartment building. Jungkook remained in the car, his eyes lingering on her retreating figure. For the first time that day, his lips curved into a soft smile. Her nervousness, somehow it was endearing. She shook his head lightly before driving away, the image of her still on his mind. The next morning Wan sat at her desk. Her head pounded worse than before. She hadn't slept properly all night, and the pain that had started yesterday was now unbearable. Her eyes burned, her vision blurred, and every breath felt heavy. Still, she kept working. Her trembling fingers tapped weakly on the laptop keys, forcing herself to finish the file. Finally, with unsteady hands, she picked up the document and stood. Her legs felt weak, each step a struggle, but she made her way towards Jungkook's office. Knocking softly, she entered. Jungkook didn't look up. His cold eyes stayed on his laptop as she placed the file on his desk. Without a word, he opened it, page by page. His sharp gaze scanned every line. One's heart raced. "Please, please let there be no mistake." She clasped her hands together, praying silently. But then Jungkook's expression shifted. His jaw tightened, and finally he looked up at her. "Every page," he said in a cold voice, "is full of errors." One's heart stopped. Her vision spun even more. She couldn't bear the disappointment less in his tone. "From the past few days you have been continuously making mistakes. Why?" His husky voice carried both coldness and frustration. One lowered her head. Her mind screamed, "Please don't fire me. Please, not now." Jungkook's eyes hardened. "You know how important this deal is to me, and yet you have made mistake again." He pushed the file back towards her, his voice sharp. "Do it again. 3 hours. No error this time." One's eyes stung with unshed tears. She whispered, I'm sorry, sir. I promise I won't make this mistake again." Jungkook's voice grew colder. "You had better not, because if you do, I won't let it slide." His warning pressed her heart like a... She nodded quietly, clutching the file with trembling hands, and walked out of the cabin. Jungkook leaned back his chair, watching her leave. His chest tightened. He hadn't wanted to speak to her that way, but her repeated mistake left him no choice. He would never fire her, not when she was one of his best employees, not when she meant more to him than she realized. But she needed to improve. that was all he wanted. Meanwhile, back at the desk, Wan sank into her chair. Her body shook, her head pounded so badly it felt unbearable. Her eyes burned as tears spilled freely down her cheek. Wan, please focus, please, she whispered to herself. If I make another mistake, sir will definitely fire me. I can't lose this job. I can't. With trembling hands over the keyboards, her chest ached, her eyes blurred with tears, but still she forced herself to keep typing because for her this job was everything. The boardroom was filled with tension as all the members sat in their seats, respectful and composed. At the head of the table sat Jungkook, the CEO of cold, commanding presence, waiting over the entire room. Beside him stood Wine, clenching her notes. With trembling hands, her head pounded. Her fever had risen sharply, and her vision blurred, but more than the fever, it was fear that made her legs trembling. She knew this meeting was too important. She couldn't afford a single mistake. The presentation began. With shaky breath, Wan started going through her report. She prayed silently that everything would go smoothly. But then one board member interrupted. Prof. Miss Wan, there are several mistakes in the report. Wan froze, her heart stopped, her throat ran dry. Slowly the member's eyes flickered toward Jungkook, who sat expressionless, his gaze fixed coldly on her. Her lips trembled, her eyes spun. Another board member spoke next. Mr. June, a page is missing from the copies as well. One's breath caught. Tears welled in her burning eyes, spilling down her cheek. Her hair spun, her body weak. This was the greatest fear come true. Failure in front of him. Then without a word, Jungkook stood. His sudden movement made every board member shoot up from their seat immediately. In his deep, cold voice, Jungkook said, "We'll postpone this meeting. I'll announce a new date once the errors are corrected." The board members didn't dare argue. Geon Enterprise was one of the top companies in the country. No one questioned Mr. Geon. They simply nodded in unison. Jungkook's sharp eyes swept the room once before he spoke again, his tone cutting through the silence. "The meeting is cancelled. You may leave." The members bowed silently and exit, one by one leaving behind an icy silence. Now only Jungkook and Wine remained in the room. She stood trembling, unable to lift her gaze. Her tears still clinging to her lashes. Jungkook's cold, husky voice laced through the heavy air. "Come to my cabin, now." Without sparing another glance, he walked out of the boardroom. One shaky legs forced herself to follow him, every step feeling heavier than the last. Jungkook stepped into his cabin, and Wan followed, close behind, her legs trembling, her breath uneven. The moment the door closed, Jungkook turned towards her, ready to speak to her, but the words never came. His eyes softened instantly. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Her face was pale, lips quivering, her entire body looking fragile and weak. Before he could speak, Wine sweat, her vision blurred completely, and in the next second she collapsed forward. Wine. Jungkook's arms shot up, catching her in time. The sudden fainting of her figure made his chest tighten, but what froze him was the burning heat radiating off her skin. He flinched as he pressed his palm on her forehead. He whispered, shock rushing through him. She was burning up. Far too much. In her unconscious state, Wine's trembling lips moved. Her voice came out weak, broken. "Please don't fire me, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Jungkook's heart clenched painfully. Fire her. How could she even think of like this? The words stabbed him, guilt crushing down like a storm. While he whispered, his throat tight. Without wasting another second, he scooped her in his arms, carrying her swiftly towards her private bedroom hidden behind his cabin, a place only a handful of people even knew existed. He kicked the door shut, laid her gently on the bed, and immediately began rubbing her cold palm, trying to bring some warmth back into her trembling hands. "Please don't fire me. I'll do better. I'm sorry," she mumbled, again tears slipping from the corners of her closed eyes. Jungkook felt his own eyes welled up. He leaned forward, brushing the hair from her damp forehead, his voice low and desperate. "Fire you? Never. Do you hear me? Never. You have made mistake. But if I had known you were sick, I would never have pushed you like this. Never." His chest ached, regret and guilt consuming him. He had been harsh, blind, too focused on perfection to notice her pain, and now the girl he secretly loved was lying helpless in front of him, burning with fever, begging him not to throw her away from company. With hurried hands, Jungkook pulled out his phone, calling the doctor. "Come to my cabin immediately, right now." Hanging up, he dropped the phone and took Wan's hand again, holding it tightly. His thumb brushed against her knuckles as his voice cracked heavy with emotion. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please open your eyes. One, just once. For me." He leaned down, pressing the softest kiss on her burning forehead. His own eyes wet with unshed tears. Guilt gnawed at his chest. He should have seen it. Her pale face, her trembling hands, her exhaustion. How had he missed it? Now all he could do was watch her fragile form on the bed, his heart breaking with every shallow breath she took. Jungkook whispered to himself, his hand brushing her cheek gently. "I will not do this. Never. One, never again." It was almost midnight. Wine slowly opened her eyes. At first her vision blurred, but as it cleared, her breath caught in her throat. Her heart nearly stopped. Jungkook was lying beside her, his arm wrapped firmly around her waist, holding her against him, his face so close that his breath mingling with hers. She froze. Never in her life had she been this close to him. Around her cold was she usually couldn't even breathe properly. But now his peaceful face just inches from hers made her heart race uncontrollably. Her gaze lingered. She couldn't stop staring. When she had first joined as his secretary, she had developed a quiet crush on him, but she had forced herself not to let it go almost immediately. After all, why would Jungkook ever look at her the same way? She was just his employee, constantly making mistakes, nervous. She was certain he could never like someone like her, trying to calm her pounding heart. Wine carefully tried to slip out of his arm, but before she could, Jungkook stirred. His grip tightened around her waist. Her eyes widened as he slowly opened his gaze, looking onto hers. "Where are you going?" he asked, his husky voice low, his breath brushing against her skin. One looked down, her voice trembling. "Sir, I know it was my mistake. I should have been more careful. I'm sorry. Please just give me." But Jungkook cut her off, his tone calm yet serious. "Why didn't you tell me you had a fever?" One's eyes widened. Shock coursed through her. How did he know? But words failed her. So she looked down, silent. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell me? His voice carried frustration, but beneath it was something else, worry. You pushed yourself until you collapsed, and you didn't even bother to let me know. Finally, she whispered, I didn't want to cause problem in the meeting. The presentation was so important for you. You are more important than any deal, Jungkook interrupted firmly. One's head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. What? He leaned closer, cupping her face with his hand. She flinched slightly at the unexpected gentleness. Unused to this side of him, his thumb brushed away the remnants of her tears. You are more important than anything in my life, he said softly, his voice low and raw. Her breath hissed. She froze. Had she really heard him right? Then Jungkook's next words shuddered. Every wall she had built around her heart. I can't pretend anymore, One. I love you. I love you so much. Her heart stopped. She blinked rapidly, unable to believe the word leaving his lips. Fire you? He scoffed bitterly. Never. How could you even think that? You fainted because of me. I gave you too much work. I pushed you to overwork. If I should have seen how exhausted you were, but I didn't, and when I saw you collapse in front of me, my heart stopped. I thought I had lost you. One stared at him, speechless, her mind spinning. She had always convinced herself her cold boss would never feel anything for her. But now he was confessing, his eyes full of sincerity and regret. Jungkook leaned closer, his lips barely brushing hers. His breath warmed against her skin. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. Don't be so shocked, he whispered with a faint smile. Is the truth. One snapped back into reality, her eyes darting down before lifting to meet his again. Her lips trembling, she whispered, But how could you? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. How could you like someone like me? Jungkook smiled softly, pulling her closer. You don't have to be perfect for me, or for anyone. You are already perfect in my eyes. You have always made my heart race. You have always made me feel alive. Her eyes widened as he leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips. One froze at first, her fist tightened against his shirt, her heart racing uncontrollably. When he finally pulled back, his gaze never wavered. From the very first day you came into my life, I feel something, Jungkook admitted in a whisper. And every single day since then, I have fallen for you harder. One's lips parted, words caught in her thought. She wanted to deny it, to convince herself she was dreaming, but his eyes, his voice, his touch were all too real. He tilted his head, his husky voice cutting through the silence. What about you? One's heart leaped. From the very first day she had indeed liked him. She had buried it, convinced he had never feel the same, but now I had a crush on you from the start, she whispered shakily. But I let it go because I thought you had never liked someone like me. I always make mistakes. I get nervous around you. Jago cut her off. Feelings don't come from perfection, One. They come from here. He placed her trembling hands over his chest. And my heart's always been yours. From now on, it's my responsibility to make you fall for me even harder. Her heart fluttered so intensely it almost hurt. Jungkook pulled her into his chest, wrapping his arms around her securely. Now sleep. The doctor said you haven't had proper rest in days, and your fever still hadn't gone down. For the first time, Wan didn't feel fear around him, no nervous, no pressure, only warmth. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. When Jungkook pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, she closed her eyes, a wave of peace washing over her. For the first time in his arms, she felt safe, and as they drifted into sleep together, their story truly began, not just as boss and secretary, but as something far deeper.